The standard front fender on my Africa Twin is really quite close to the tyre at the back of the fender. The front, in fact, is really good. Now there's these fixing points that hold the mudguard, and there's one for the brake. Now, today's challenge is to see whether I can do a DIY to raise the fender a little bit. So of course, the first job is to undo all those fixings and then see whether I can work out how to make some brackets to just raise the fender a little bit. I don't want to have a great big high mudguard like a dirt bike, but just a little bit more room at the back would be great. Now there's a captured nut there, so that'll be useful if I'm able to make another bracket for that. As I pointed out, there are 3 M6 bolts on either side of the mudguard that hold it on. And each of these has a captured nut or a threaded hole, so I don't have to worry about nuts. And that's enough out of you, I heard that. Annoyingly, there's heaps of room at the front of the guard and hardly any at the back. Now I want to just raise it a little bit, and ideally I'd like to even that out and make the front similar to the back. But if I do that, it takes the guard too far away from the front forks, and I don't like the look of that either, so I think I'm just going to have to compromise. As I said, I don't want to lift it much. I reckon, yeah, something like that is all it needs. So, with only a bit of an idea of what I really want, I get out the calipers and make a start. I reckon just a straight piece of flat bar with 2 holes in it for the original holes and 2 more holes for the guard. I've got some 5mm thick stainless steel flat bar that I reckon will do the job. And to start with, I'm only going to drill the 2 holes for where the existing fitting goes. These 2 holes only have to be clearance for an M6. And because I can, I'm measuring the distance between those 2 holes nice and accurately at 52mm. With that part done, I'm going to bolt it on, then hold the guard up to where I reckon it looks good, and put a Sharpie mark as to where the new bottom hole might go. Now it's back to the shed to do those 2 new holes. This time I'm going to tap threads in those holes for M6 bolts. The tapping size for an M6 bolt is 5mm. Drilling stainless is never fun But what works for me is to go fairly slow, but quite a high lot of pressure, and a bit of cutting wheel as well does the job. Now to tap the thread. I'll put it in the chuck just to get the tap started, and then I'll finish it off with the bar. I'm taking it nice and easy because, again, tapping through stainless is never very much fun, and I don't really want to break off the tap. And it's the same process for the other hole. Easy. Back to the bike, and I'll fit this one. If this looks okay, I'll build another one exactly the same. Yes, I know what you're thinking. The guard's going to be out further than standard, but there's plenty of flex in the plastic guard, so there's no problem having it out a little bit further, the width of the flat bar and the head of the bolt. And I'm going to make up some little spaces so that the plastic isn't pushing on the bolt heads. I reckon that looks alright. Happy with that, so I'll go and make another bracket for the other side and keep moving along. Now, because these brackets are going to be held on with bolts, and the bolts have heads, it means that the mudguard's going to be out a little bit further than normal. I'm just going to make up some little spaces to space the mudguard out so that it's not bolting down onto those heads of the bolts. With both the front brackets in place, I've now got to work out what I'm going to do with this other fixing point. So I'm just going to measure that and make a couple more pieces of little flat bar to go there. A little more shed action sees me with a couple more little brackets. Now, the brackets I've made have just got one hole for the existing bolt and then another hole for the mudguard. Well, that didn't work. That just pivots. It doesn't hold the back of the guard solidly. Oh well, back to the old drawing board. So, it's back to the shed for a different bracket. This time, there's two holes to secure it to that little back arm so that it doesn't pivot. Unfortunately, for this to work, I've got to drill another little hole in that arm. And so I'm just tapping for the thread, which is a little bit fiddly because I can't get the proper thread tapping tool in. So I just have to use a little spanner. Right, this bracket can go on now. I'm just putting a bit of medium strength Loctite on the bolts so that they don't come undone. And Bob will be my uncle, hopefully. one of my little spaces behind the mudguard. I'll make sure that the plastic isn't pushing up against the heads of the bolts unevenly. There we go, nice and solid. Now, because the mudguard is raised, that mounting point no longer fits for the brake lines, so just another simple little bracket to secure the brake line. One hole and one tapped thread. That's all that's required. Okay, job's done. I would have liked the gap front and back a lot more even, but can't be helped.